So complete Integra with a B motor in here. This one just got shipped to us from overseas. So this has been pretty interesting because there's lots and lots of pieces. And the problem is whenever you do an engine build or a car build from scratch, there's so many little pieces that you don't realize that you need. Bolts, clips, brackets, mounts, all kinds of things. There's boxes and boxes of stuff and there's still so many little pieces missing. Any idea? He doesn't speak English, he just kind of pointed at me and he nodded.
I don't know if that's what he's going for though.
We didn't order a motor, did we?
I didn't.
He ordered this used motor so we would have something to rob parts from, like the accessories, bolts, water hoses and such. Well, we have the new engine right here, which we'll show you here in a minute, got delivered. And he purchased to try and make the process a little easier. However, we need the CRV bracket to make his mount kit work. The bracket for the water hoses so that it will fit. This is the Merc Racing manifold. We'll show you more of this here in a minute. We're just kind of giving you an idea. He has a clutch. He has no bolts. He has no flywheel. This is from the previous one that we had on chase parts. This guy had more complete stuff. However, stuff is missing. This is missing all kinds of stuff. A lot of hybrid racing stuff, which does make our job a little bit easier. If you buy the shifter and you buy the cables, you still need the brackets, and you need the bracket for the transmission. That's the bracket I'm referring to. There is no shift fork. The bolts that hold the engine to the transmission, all of that stuff you got to chase. All of it takes time, and it always nickel and dimes you. That's the manifold on the spare K24 engine, so we can verify it fits. There's still a little bit of things that have to be done. We need the water bracket for here because this doesn't have it, but this is where the supercharger is going to sit and the snout is going to go this way. That is a big supercharger for a 2.4. This is a 2300 heat and blower.
That goes on there. When you line that hole up, it hits there before it kind of lines the other hole up.
It's half a hole off.
And it's like right up against the
Right
cover
where
up
our
here.
belt is
Like the
coming
belt,
around here.
the belt wouldn't go around that.
If this, could that bolt be lined up and this one moved? If we was to weld or change that?
I think honestly this would have to go up here more. I believe the US accessories, this is more straight up and down, like the tensioner thing here.
Yeah, I think you're right.
So we can look, we have one in this red car, but I think that they're more like that and this one's more like this. Yeah, everything's different. The tensioner's different, the alternator's different.
Yeah, so the tension looks odd.
Yeah.
It was tapped in there.
So that is going there, which is our thick black yellow. It's going to this Hyundai relay. It's Hyundai Kia relay. And it looks like it's powering the fans.
Yeah, because it goes over to here. Here's the double grounds for the relay.
This was actually on the battery. There's your grounds.
These are the two fan wires, right? This one and
Yeah.
this one. Where was the original wiring from the fans? In that?
I believe it's in that loom there.
And that disappears in there.
So yeah, they have some wiring coming out of the loom, but it's
These
all...
are not exactly fantastic fans to need separate relays.
Yeah.
That one is literally touching the header.
That thin wire was just a trigger wire.
Oh. We're going to pull the motor out and depower the rack. You might have seen the red car with the K24 all motor. It does basically the same thing. Take all the guts out of it, strip it so it's a manual rack, because when the K goes in here, the supercharger is going to take up the same position as the power steering where it would be, which is about here. So I'm not going to show you all the details because if you watched that last video, we showed you how to do it. But let's get this motor out. So if I want to give you a quick tour of England, I'm going to start with this scene right here. That's what it looks like in England. I'm not ragging on England because I was born there and I lived there for 23 years. Well, imagine this. There is no sunrise or sunset. It's just day or night. For years, I never knew which direction the sun came up because I didn't see it that much. It just would be literally dark and then light would appear. Okay, so this is like flashbacks of the red car. These axles are wrong. These are 36 millimeter hubs, which means this is the larger size. This is for the Japanese 5-lug. It needs to be the US. So right now, axles are on hold. We got the engine mount removed now. That is the Hasport mount, the bolts here. You use 2 bolts where it lines up, and then you drill through here. Also, next thing is to take that rack apart and depower it, put it back so it's a manual rack. Just like we did on the red car, the way we found is to remove that inner joint there, and then obviously the steering shaft, and that will come out this way. Taking the rack apart, we've got to take these fittings out. This is obviously, I showed you in the past, there is a piston in here that is traveling back and forth here. This fluid pushes on each side of the piston. We have to take those lines off and seal those. We need to take the center out of the rack, and then we're going to take that piston off. I think I showed you on the last one. I'm going to give you a quick demo on this one. So it is cold and rainy outside. Our poor Honda guy just had to come and knock on our door. These are delivery parts. This is the CRV engine mount. This is the shift fork. All of this stuff he was missing, and these are the flywheel bolts. Flywheel should be here UPS today. It's coming from a separate source. This is just, we spent 3 hours yesterday going through the list of what we are missing. It's all coming from different delivery guys. Would you believe it? This shift fork is brand new. Look at that. Honda don't include the spring. You know, when we ordered this, it didn't show the picture of the spring being separate because we would have ordered it. You would think Honda would include that. It's out of a B trans. I'm hoping that it's close.
Yeah, see where the little ball is supposed to be?
Oh yeah, that needs to be like over there, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Ugh. It's so aggravated right now. This is the inner part right here. This is the ring. We didn't show you on that last one. We'd already took it apart, but you see it's actually a one piece, and then it has that seal around it, which is just like a piston ring really. It's a real hard, like a neoprene rubber. So the way to do this is to cut this with a die grinder. Just be careful that you don't go into the shaft. You're not going to hurt the shaft now because there's obviously no seal in there, but you know, it's always best just to be careful. You're going to cut down here, and then that ring will split and come off in 2 halves, and then you'll see this will be open. Then this is the restricting part in the rack. This is the piston sliding up and down that cylinder. So if you do loop it the old school way, you're pushing fluid from this side around a hose to this side. So there's a bit of restriction in the fluid. So as you see, I cut it on both sides right there. I'm hoping I can just break this ring by hitting it both sides. It's probably a hardened ring. There we go. There is a clip right there. We can just leave it. It's not going to do anything. This is all now free of this right here, which is like the piston. So there you go, that's the way it comes off. Thanks to Matt for bringing us a used shift fork right here. It's used, well, we've already ordered this, so all I need is the spring, but that's it. Why would Honda separate that? That's just very frustrating. So that's it, that's the only piece we need, and look, it's mint. So we can get our transmission together. There you go, there is the new bearing and shift fork on there. So this transmission, he has one dowel right there. Very important to have these dowels. That is what lines up the transmission. Actually, there's still a little bit more popcorn in there. I'll see if the other dowel is in his spare motor, because his new engine doesn't have anything. Yes, 2 dowels. I can take one of those out. These will sometimes come out with your fingers. Right there. I haven't even shown you his new motor yet, have I? There it is. This is the motor. So it did actually come in a really nice crate. You guys heard of these guys? So basically his second motor should be all the extra parts we need for this, apart from the accessories which we showed you. We've ordered those should be coming today also, but all the other things should fit on there. We have, I'm sure there's going to be a couple of gaskets we're missing. We do have the intake manifold gasket, exhaust manifold gasket we need to order. Transmission is right there. We need the flywheel before we can put that on. There is a main seal. Like I said, there is no dowels in here. I just put the new ones in the trans. I guess I'll start taking things off his other motor to put on this motor, but definitely a fancy looking motor. I am not a fan of these. Look how thin those wires are, and the fact that every single one of them is black. Imagine trying to figure that out when there's an issue.
I mean, it should be easy enough, you would think, but still, like,
should be, but
it's
Honda,
a lot easier, like when you like, oh, that wire is blue, that wire is blue, or
yeah,
white, or whatever. But no, everything's black, so
when you're tracing it. But
it might just take a little longer to figure out.
I guess it makes it cheaper because you're only ordering one type of wire, maybe a couple of different thicknesses. But this just looks too thin to me.
A couple of thicknesses, no, that's definitely just one thin.
Yeah, it looks like it's all exactly the same wire.
Yeah.
FedEx. There we go. Good old Rail Street came through. Fast shipping. This is a flywheel. It's a steel flywheel. It's not the ultralight. You don't want to go ultra light, especially with a supercharger drawing on the motor. You want a little bit of inertia in that. Let's check this thing out. And let's use our new Honda bolts to put it on. Here's the clutch, and here is the bushing that they supplied. If you didn't see the video, this was the Integra from last week. This was my red Integra. We put a K24 in for the customer, and it was a naturally aspirated 270 to the wheel car with air conditioning. Check it out. You always want to make sure every little piece of trash off the floor is off, because that zip tie right there, you will not roll.
Yeah, nothing rolls over it.
Nothing. Handles pretty nice, doesn't it?
Yeah.
There we go. That looks like a K-Series. Good so far. Without the accessories, there's like so much room in here.
So the mount to the thing in the back is loose, and the mounts are also loose in the holders.
Okay.
So, and the bracket on top of the trans is loose.
Okay. Come down easy. Watch your fingers.
I'm clear.
Engine is hanging. Just did a couple of test fits of the header. We'll show you details on that a little bit later, but the engine fits. Everything is looking good. So much nicer when everything is out of the way. The last car had ABS lines down here, which was really tight. This one, I mean, K motors are always so tight over here, but look at that. That's like room for days, which is good because we're going to need that room when we start lining up supercharger belts and such. Anyway, those parts, the accessories should be here tomorrow. Then we can start moving. So it's looking good. That's it. I want to go get us some coffee. It's cold. You want your seat heater on. You want your steering wheel heater on. Where is it? It's 42 degrees. It hasn't warmed up. I took my son to school, and at 7 o'clock this morning, it was 41 degrees. Listen to the tires. If you saw one of the last videos, you hear the tires would do the woo 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 woo. Well, I got 28,000 miles on the V8 Colorado now, and the tires were all choppy, so I just got new tires put on, and now it rides like a dream. I made a video and it was kind of a parody video. I don't like to be too serious. If you know me, I'm not real serious about anything unless it comes to cars. Mentality of getting the tire and putting it on the wheel and then spinning it, I mean, it just pisses me off. It's like, I go, how can you not see this? So I made that video. If you like it, I'll link it. But anyway, it was kind of like a ha-ha tongue-in-cheek. I don't have any Starbucks cards left, so I am buying us Wawa coffee. Those are correct, right?
They should be.
All right, so you know what's kind of funny? We just spoke to Kendall at Hybrid. They're snowed in. Like North Florida right now, they have 7 inches of snow. That's the craziest amount of snow that I think we have had in Florida. And Hybrid Racing in Louisiana, so they can't even get the axles out to us. So right now, they're the axles that Carlos needed last week, and the axles that we sent back from Carlos, which are the wrong ones, they're the ones we need for this car. We're talking about this hub size, by the way. This is 36 millimeter, which is Japanese Type R only, and the ones we need are 32 millimeter, which are the smaller shaft, so it fits in our hub. Kind of crazy. From our friends at TAE. Let's see, we have an alternator. Is that all main housing?
Yeah, water pump and housing. Got a tensioner on there.
Nice. And there's our crank pulley.
I did check upstairs just in case we have a tensioner, so if we needed it, we got it.
Okay, yeah, we need the... Oh no, the blower is going to take place of the...
That's where that goes.
Okay, good. All right, so now we just need bolts. The crank pulley, there's the K24 crank pulley. So this would overspeed the blower by a lot. So there's the difference right there. When we get the rest of the parts off, we'll show you it side by side. But why the Japanese engine has completely different brackets, I don't know. Why doesn't everybody just agree to have the same brackets? You know what I mean? An alternator is an alternator, whether it's on that side of the world or here. Who knows?
I get having different alternators, but they should all at least bolt on them, right?
Well, they should, but like I said, have one alternator, it runs them all, and then if you have the supermodel, have one that has the high amp. Make one alternator that everybody uses. I didn't film it because we've been kind of doing two things at once, but remember the Integra from the last episode? If you watched it, the last video, we built this car. I just brought it back. It had a little tiny leak coming from the slave cylinder. He bought a Exetti slave cylinder, and the slave cylinder itself was leaking internally, so we just put a new one on, rebled it. He's good to go now. He's leaving. Good customer of ours. We're doing something for his. I might film it, I might not. I don't know. I'm busy. George's busy. It's cold as hell out here. So this is the US one. This is the Gideon one. I mean, it's just so weird why they would make that just that little bit different. So crazy. Anyway, I figured I'd show you it. I told you I'd show you it. Let's get this one on our motor. We have the new O-ring for this, and the rest of it is Honda Bond. So this is the cell phone that we use to communicate with customers. So when you are a customer, you get this cell phone number. So we don't have axles. They're supposed to be here tomorrow, and that is him sending updates. We're gonna go get the spacers from the Del Sol. If you saw the last video when we were doing an Integra, we put the spacers in there so we could move it, and I explained all about that. So I'm not gonna do that again. I'm just gonna go get them. There's a spacer right there. I didn't want you to think I was using that same clip as I used from the last video, which that video, by the way, goes up tonight. This is the Del Sol. I gave it a quick wash since you saw it the last time. But if it hasn't sold by the time you see this video, there's the brackets, and there's the alternator charge cable. I don't know if that's going to reach, George.
I don't know if it's long enough.
Okay, officially after hours now. We're going to start on this one. It needs a new clutch. We built this one probably 5 years ago, and the clutch is slipping under full throttle, so... This has our replacement bolts from we did last time, which is going to make our life much easier for removing them because that Allen key fits in. Yep. adjustment feel okay?
Yeah.
All right, we'll test drive it tomorrow.
I'm gonna put it in second.
That's good, means we can go home. Yeah, don't press that button again. Axles arrived overnight. Thank you. We'll get those installed here in a second. Let me go ahead and show you the supercharger. So it's an Eaton 2300 supercharger, pretty much the same size as what comes on the C601, big supercharger. So right there, that is on the blower. Yeah, that is a blower right there. Just some contact paint right there. That's the tallest point. This surprisingly has room. I didn't see this.
Yeah, that's lower than the top of the blower, so.
Yeah, that's a contact point right there.
I mean, this may be something where we could come in here and cut webbing out.
It's either that or replace the hood. So cooler is mounted, pump is mounted, hoses are hooked up. This is the reservoir right here. We built a little bracket to pick up those two holes there so the reservoir can bolt to that. We swung the hoses that way so we have a bit more room for an intake. Throttle bracket right now, because it didn't come with a throttle bracket. This is a cable that we had. It's a new GSR cable, and that is going to be somewhere around there. Water's got to go in. We're going to wire this to a, obviously, ignition on power, maybe an auxiliary on, probably ignition on, might be better, just in case you sit there listening to the radio. Blower's on, belt is on, we showed you that. The hybrid racing fuel lines are probably not going to work. We're going to have to custom make them. This inlet right here, there's no room for an inlet, so the plug is there. We're probably going to need to run either a hose this way or a 180 and put the hose that way, which might look a little bit cleaner. Anyway, we'll start putting that together. We're not going to use many of these hybrid racing fuel lines just because some of the parts, the fitment or the positioning isn't our ideal favorite part. Regulator right here, that is together, so they give you a line right here, a -4 for the return, and then there is a -6 right there for the feed, and you cut it off and clamp that on, which we're not a big fan of. We're not going to do that. We need a compression fit, and I'll show you that when we come to it. And there is their inline filter. So some of these parts we're going to use and some we're not. Let me show you what we're thinking. This is the 180 that I think is going to fit on this line nice. It's out the way of everything. Everything will all be a focal point. You'll be able to see it. I didn't want to run it this way because the catch can line is going to be here. Also, you're going to cover up their logo and here. So I'm thinking we're going to run this along here. We've got some new -6. And then right here, this is the fuel line. This is where the fuel filter used to go. This is what they give you a push-on hose for, which I don't think we're going to use. There is a nice straight section right there. I think way out the way here, we're going to cut that there and put a compression fitting on there, and then we can screw a -6 directly to it. I think it'll be much more secure than just a push-on for the feed. Now the return right here, that's not a problem. The factory one is essentially a push-on. There's no pressure on that, it's just a return. But feed is something I always want to be a little extra cautious on and make sure we don't have any issues. These hoses all need to be moved out of the way. You can see that line right there. We are all set, unplugged the injector so we can turn the engine over and get some oil pressure. We're just going to check fuel pressure. I'm going to cycle it. No, not seeing anything or hearing anything. Not hearing anything at all. What we basically got to do is get fuel pressure and just get it somewhat close, and then we'll crank the engine over to build oil pressure. Then we'll adjust that once it starts up. Let's diagnose that. Right now we're not getting a fuel. All right, so we've got the charger on just so we can crank it for a little bit longer to build some oil pressure. Are you ready? All right, go ahead. I'll listen up here. Just keep an eye on the oil light. Always nice just to see that light go out, especially put it on video. Something you should always do with a new motor, or even a motor that's sat for a long time. Go ahead and crank it, get oil pressure before you do anything. Then you can put your injectors on there. So with key on, we have no power in the ECU, no lights or anything. So we're gonna start diagnosing whose harness it is. But it's only one guy's harness, right?
Well, I believe the power is going to come from the 101 plug, so it's going to be either the hybrid harness taking power from the car to the ride wire harness, or the ride wire harness putting it into the ECU.
All right, we have fuel pressure now. We had to jump it in the relay because it's not sending information to the relay to activate the fuel, so we'll fix that here in a minute. We just wanted to get the motor running, or start it. You ready? Yep. Have an idle air control valve, so we're going to have to play with the throttle stop for that. But that's always good when it's running. Would not only like to keep it clean, but this does help keep the sound down. Not to mention keeps the bumper a little cleaner. There we go. Then we upgraded him to titanium for no charge. This is a Tycon inline resonator. This is the longest one they have. Then we have mandrel bent piping going back here. Then we go into the Tycon long muffler. Superchargers are always noisy, so we're doing our best to keep this thing as quiet as we can. Obviously reducing weight with the titanium always is a good choice for weight reduction, and it looks pretty. Look at that. Did a couple of pulls on it just to check everything. It's already getting some color in the piping. All right, let's get this thing on the dyno, see where we are boost wise. It's making way too much boost. It's 25, 26 pounds of boost. It's making 15 pounds of boost right off idle. Of course, that's smoke in the clutch. We want to bring that boost down anyway, and then we're going to need to increase the capacity for a little bit more fuel. Let's get some larger injectors so we can run the E as well as the 93. The pulley that is on there is a 3.2. The set as this one that is a 4-inch. So I'm going to remove that bolt. So there is the 3.2. Let's see the spacer, the tensioner between here. There's 2 threaded holes there. That is pretty close to lined up around there. I'm going to double check everything. We don't want it to interfere with this side of the belt. Can't see it because of my hand, but the further I push it that way, we run out of adjustment there. We're going to have to kind of even that up. Okay, now we have the ATI lower pulley, the 4.0 upper pulley, the 1440cc injectors, and the Clutchmasters FX400 clutch. So hopefully we're going to get the booster down to around 17, 18, something like that. And of course, no issues with the clutch holding the power there. And then we can maybe do a little bit of E85. Boost is holding steady at 17.5 pounds. We definitely got it down from, I think it was almost 26 before. Final numbers on pump gas right here, 450 and 290. Fortunately, it is easy to change the belts on this, but to try and get the belt correct, the length, so we didn't run into a rubbing issue right here, too much tension would put this in the wrong spot, and too little tension, it would cause a potential slipping issue. So after about 6 belt sizes, we finally got the perfect one that fits. Numbers on E85 boost maintains the same, 514, 330 torque, and the graph looks perfect. There it is. A lot of time, a lot of effort, a lot of messing around, a lot of back and forth for a package that we've never done before, and there doesn't seem to be a whole lot of information out there to help you. Even some of the manufacturers that make these are not really as helpful with these parts as you would think. So a little bit of experimenting, but definitely a good power package right there. A little bit oversized blower in my opinion. I think a 1700 would suit it better, but this is what the customer had. This is what the customer supplied. So we made it happen. So being a really large supercharger, obviously the hood had to be cut. That's how much of the hood we cut, so it clears. Again, not really my favorite thing. Isn't something I would want to do. And we didn't opt for repainting the hood because wherever we put tape on the hood, when you remove the tape, it would pull paint off, which means that whole hood would have to be stripped correctly and then repainted. This is something that the customer is going to be able to do, and then maybe smooth some of those edges in. But again, something different. We just made the best out of what we could, treat the car like it was ours, and tried to make everything as nice and as perfect as we could. It did supply the UK Type R dash right there. We installed that, everything works correctly. Now the car is done, we're gonna go over it, and it's ready to go back to the customer. So we packed all his used parts up. We did make a deal with him with some of his used parts to help him out a little bit, and it is the K24 that we took the accessories off, even though we couldn't use them. Anyway, I'm gonna give this to George so George can build a motor in the future. He has a K24 in his car, so I'm sure he'll be excited about that. George has a bit of a poker face, so sometimes you don't know if he's excited or not, but he is. And I know he's happy to get that, so that is go to George. Ton of power for a front wheel drive car, and of course, instant boost. Isn't a whole lot of information about this, so hopefully we kind of shared some details with you. If it's something you're thinking about doing, I'd probably recommend the 1700 blower or a 19, whatever they have. I think the 23 is just way too big for this, but it worked. Everything is done. Engine is fantastic. Supercharger is fantastic once we figured out the pulley situation. And again, not a lot of information about it. Nobody's really out there sharing that information. And of course, some of the missing pieces here and there. A lot of hours in this. I think we had to kind of break from this and work on a car because it was already scheduled in, and then work some overtime and then come back to this car. So we put a lot of hours in, but I think total build time on this car was 2 weeks with a gap in the middle, but 2 full weeks start to finish. Came in boxes and is leaving under its own power. Guys, thanks for watching. If you did like the video, don't forget, hit the subscribe, hit the share, hit the like, and we'll see you on the next video.